Hi, this is Front Up. I'm Jason Bridges, your host this week. We are really fortunate to have Matt Fee here today. Thanks, Matt, for coming.
Thank you, Jason, and I'm your co-host this week.
Co-host.
I'm co-hosting.
All right.
I'm going to ask you questions as well.
Okay, that should be interesting.
All right.
Yeah. Well, we sit next to each other on Wednesday nights, so now we get to sit next to each other here.
Yeah, it's fine.
That'll be fun. So
We don't have to sit this close on Wednesday night, though.
no, well, we can face the other way. It's a little more comfortable. So, how's it going so far? You're on a new board now for 3 months.
That was my question.
No,
I was
no.
going to ask you. Now, I think it's going great. I think you guys are a good addition to the board. I really do. I think it's a different perspective, and I think that we have a good chance to get some stuff done.
Well, I know I don't want to speak for anybody else. Speak for myself. You and Jim and Don have been really great in just being patient with us and giving us background on certain things that have happened, and you know this, and maybe you should read this, and then instead of kind of like letting us just kind of flap around and trying to figure everything out. So you made it easier for us.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
But we could be mean to you now. Is that the?
Yes.
Okay, so we could.
Yeah.
The honeymoon is over. This is a warning.
I think so.
How do you think it's going? What do you think?
I think it's going really well. I mean, I know I haven't been through a whole cycle, a whole year, so we haven't went through the budget process, and we have special town meeting, and I think that'll, this time next year, next May, I'll be able to look back and really see what I didn't understand, or what was difficult, or what I needed to. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah, I think it takes about a year and a half, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So usually right as you're starting to figure it out, you have to run again to try to stay in.
Yeah.
So one of the things I hope the government study comes up with is maybe a 5-year term, because I think it's sort of like the planning board's 5 years. It takes a couple years to get acclimated, and then right as you are, the whole board changes, and then we would only have 5. We'd only have one person a year running, so you wouldn't have 2 new people come in.
So that'd be a charter change.
That might be a charter change, or government study committee, maybe they'll look at it, but that's just sort of one of the things.
That's not a bad idea, because I'm thinking I'm going to have to run for another term, and I'm planning to. I mean, things could change, life could change, but I'm planning to, only because I see how fast 3 years will go in trying to be productive and get things done. And so
government moves slow and the term moves fast, so you're kind of banging against each other. So
that's one question I got when I was campaigning and running. It was like, well, things move really slow. How are you going to speed it up? And now I would say, by really being in it, I mean, sitting there on the other side for 3 years as public outreach manager, like 70-80%. But once you get on the other side, it's a little different.
Yeah, it's a lot different.
You and I can't really, outside of Wednesday nights, talk about major issues and decide things. It has to be done on Wednesday night.
Exactly. It's on Wednesday night, and it's in front of the camera, and you've got to be very careful.
Right.
But it's also, you have to build consensus and get buy-in from the various departments or from the staff. It's and then you've got a town meeting to approve a lot of it, depending what it is. They've got to approve the money and the FinCom. So it really, it isn't built to be nimble. Let's put it that way.
Well, I know before I came on the board, we had a meeting. We were just chatting about everything, and one of the big things that you are interested in, you know a lot about, is transportation, and that's parking, that's everything. Right. You were on the board. I want to say how many terms ago?
I don't know. I think I was there in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s?
2003, somewhere in there.
Right, with
then
Finn,
I took
Finn
about
Murphy.
12, with Finn, and I think Bender was there, and
Yep.
I was with Timmy and the chief, and Frank Spriggs. So I was with
Yeah.
Now I'm one of those old guys. I was the young guy then. I was Toby then, and now I'm the old guy.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny.
Are there things back then that we were talking about that we're still talking about now?
Oh, we're having the same conversation with parking downtown and traffic that we did then, and it hasn't really progressed. And I start to understand why. There's a lot of entrenched interest, and a lot of people don't want to change how they do things. And there's tons of reasons. Oh, it's only a few months a year. We're lucky to have the people here. All those kinds of things. But the reality is, we're adding 2-point-something cars with every house we build, and it's getting worse, and it's probably not going to get better. And so anyway, that's the.
Mm-hmm. It feels worse right now, but I know usually that June transition, almost everybody says, and I feel like I want to say it too, like, oh, the traffic's worse this year, but it may be worse this year. Worse in the sense of more of it sitting in traffic longer to get from A to B.
I had a friend who has a house on Pleasant Street. It took him 45 minutes, almost an hour, to go from the Stop and Shop out of town to his house in Pleasant Street. And he's like, Matt, what is going on here? And this was on 4th of July. What I see, like I can look at my bread numbers, how much we sell, and tell you how many people are here.
Yeah.
And the busy times are busier, and then we have lulls. So it used to be that we, sort of 4th of July was busy and it was a little less busy. Now it goes way up and then it goes down. And if the weather's nice, it goes way up. And then people are here 3 days because they can get a house for 3 days and then they're gone.
Okay.
Or they own a house and so they come for 3 days because it's going to be nice weather. And I'm going home, it's going to rain. So it's a very different usage pattern. The boats have changed it. And I think, we're seeing the results of that in the traffic. I mean, certain days you can barely move.
Yeah. How do we control cars here? You can't.
Well,
how do you say somebody like, no, you can't bring your car over, but you can have one, and you can? And
well, I had, I proposed that 20 years ago and got 2 votes at town meeting, to do something, and we worked on it quite extensively. And I think you have to use market forces at some point to control it. I think you can't just divvy them up because people will go to town meeting and vote, to add more of them because they want them. I think, if all of a sudden you're diluting someone's value, then they'll want to keep the number of cars down. At this point, I'm not sure that people would embrace that. They might, but I think that there's other things that we should be doing. I think we should be embracing technology. I think we should be putting more money into bike paths. I know you like that, and fixing sidewalks and not letting people park and drive over them. And I think there's the alternatives. We should be funding NRTA more aggressively if we can, and we should be charging downtown. Like everywhere else you go, that's as busy as we are, and the consultants have said that we have as much demand as they've seen anywhere in all the places they've looked for parking. We're 110, 120% full. And you say, how can you be 120% full? Well, they're parked on the yellow lines. They're parked, right in front of each other, and So I think, I think we have to, as a community, accept that there's a value to parking and begin to charge for it.
what do you think about bike shares? More, kind of park and ride type things on both sides of town coming in. Does that help? Is that just a small part of the?
I think the bike
solution?
share is great. I think bike paths and bike share is great. I think I'm kind of anti park and ride because I think once people put their, put the key in the ignition, Nantucket's so small that we should be able to. People should be able to go a mile or 2 from their house and pick up a bus or pick up transportation. And I think as soon as they put the key in the ignition, everyone feels like they're going to find a spot. So in they go. And the problem is, it's the circling, and I think it's the choke points getting in and out of the key places. So sort of getting into downtown, there's sort of 5 corners, and then there's Union Street, and then there's Francis Street. Wherever you start looking, there's some major choke points that, that we're not going to make them much better. Those streets aren't widening. We're not moving all the houses on Union Street anytime soon. So I think that we've got to come to grips with that, and we've got to sort of start to design, our future transportation needs based on what the town is like, our layout, not the other way around. But
you mentioned technology. Do you think? Because I know there's things out there where we could have a parking system downtown where the first hour could be free. You can set up however you want, but you pay with it. You can pay with it with a kiosk because not everybody has a phone, right? But you also can have it on your cell phone, but also could tell you where the spots are open. Because I think the number is 30% of traffic is people looking for a spot, looking for a parking space.
Right. And a lot of these are set up. You want 10 or 20% of the spaces to be open at any one time. So that if it's demand management, you're changing the cost of it to drive 20%, 10 or 20% to be open. And I think those are the types of things we have to accept. Sort of like a parking garage, that's how you'll pay for a parking garage. Now, I was adamantly opposed to a parking garage 15 years ago. I've sort of softened, but I think people's view of it is unrealistic. I think a lot of people that work downtown think that they're going to be able to park on street in front of their business, and that all the visitors and rich people will park in the parking garage. And so they'll park for free on the most advantageous places, and the visitors will go to the least advantageous and pay money. And if you're setting up a system, that's not how it works. If you want it to be effective, you have to charge the most for the most advantageous places. And you can't have loopholes. If you put any loopholes in, people are going to, realize it and use them.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, like we're dealing with, what is it, the trucks parked overnight. We left a loophole that that I didn't think was a good idea at the time. We left a loophole a couple of years ago for resident trucks. Oh, what if they're downtown drinking? That's unfair. They're doing the right thing. Well, all the off-island guys have just gone and registered their trucks.
Right.
And those, and so anyway, that's things like that. You have to look at it as a whole, and you have to take the names and personalities out of it, and you have to take the Islanders Islanders, we get a better break. It should be better for us. No, it's better for us if we have turnover downtown. It's better for all of us if we have a vibrant downtown.
Yeah.
And you know what, we may have to pay a little bit, or find our own alternatives, and that's we have to come to terms with that. Not everything can be set up to our advantage, and when we do it like that, sometimes we actually harm ourselves.
Right.
So, and people, that may not be a popular thing to say, but
What do you think about, you mentioned year-round transportation.
Right.
You said funding NERDA, but
Right.
I took that as year-round transportation. Are we getting to the point where you feel we really need it?
I'm not so sure. I think we do for certain segments and certain routes, but I'm not so sure. We need to find a funding source, which maybe that could be parking, or it should be parking. And then I think, I'm not so sure how busy it's going to be in January and February. A lot's going on. We're not selling very many loaves of bread, so I know there's not very many people here in January.
Right.
So okay, so maybe it can be, maybe we should be easing into it. Do it through Stroll, take a month or two off, and if it's really or do a smaller version, an abbreviated version for the people that need to get to the hospital or get downtown, etc., and then open it up again. And if it's a van, then great, we'll start. We can find a way to service it. But if you look now, we sort of have. We've added a couple things, but then we've added the shuttle bus and that went away to the boats, and and some of the routes aren't as long as they used to be and don't run as long. I don't think we need to find a funding source if we want to expand it.
Right.
So
I came here in '99,
right.
So I'm kind of in one. I've only seen one section in Nantucket. I've seen it change quite a bit,
right.
But not like you have.
Yes,
right.
I've seen it a bit more. Probably, yeah.
So what do you think about the change? How much of it is good? How much of it is you feel?
I feel fairly. It'd be great if you could freeze it at the time that you remember, but that's not reality. I still think Nantucket is a great place, but I don't think that doesn't mean we can't try to make it keep it great. And and things like my friend taking 45 minutes to go half a mile with his groceries, those are the kind of things we need to solve, or we're going to begin to degrade the experience. And sort of, people have always said you're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg, and people, for everyone that leaves, this was a Bobby quote I think the other night, was there's 5 more that want to come, and there are right now, and that's great. But what happens when they aren't? What happens when for everyone that leaves there's 1 that wants to come, or 2 that want to come? And the demand isn't as high, and there's the demand for housing and the demand for rentals, and and the guys aren't building as fast as they can build. That's going to ripple through and have an impact. So I think sort of the more conservation, the more we can get a hold of transportation and keep the place viable and nice, the better we'll be.
When you were on the select board
Right.
back in the day, did you guys ever talk about a building cap? Because you start hearing people talk about it now who don't
Right.
like the growth.
Right.
Who think like, all right, we're going too fast. It's not sustainable. Traffic,
Yeah,
water quality, everything.
Yeah, we had a building cap for about a year and a half, and Andy Lowell was the one who proposed it, which was interesting. And it got sort of it lasted a year and a half, and then as soon as it started to impact Nantucket people, like, oh, I can't build my shed, it kind of went away. The reality, though, if you look back at it, how do you say it? It used to be the builders were, island builders, and all the money stayed in the economy. As we've gone, we're under different pressure now. It's consortiums and it's outside money. It's not like a rich guy building a house almost anymore. Some of these big projects are they're at a whole nother level. And I think I don't know whether that's good or bad. It's good because they can spend whatever they want and they get it done. But I'm not so sure that the work is, I don't know if all the money is sticking anymore. I think a lot of the money is heading off on the High Line every day, and it's not in our community. It's not buying cups of coffee or loaves of bread, and I think those issues, sort of a slower pace and running longer, there's a lot of sense to that from an economic perspective, health of the island perspective. Now, whether that's a building cap or, I think that wouldn't be accepted, but at least we should be thinking, that it isn't a bad thing to take your time. Think of your business or something natural, do I build it for the peak? We built the airport for the peak, and then the thing dipped. So we're stuck with this big empty airport that costs a lot of money to run.
Yeah.
You don't build it for the peak. You build it to be comfortable in the shoulders, and be a little empty in the winter, and and a little knocking into each other a little bit in the summer.
Find a way to get by.
Yeah, because of the way it works, and I think that that sort of thinking has to be layered into most of the Nantucket process.